So, I want you to picture someone really specific at your workplace right now. Like that one veteran who has just been there since the absolute dawn of time.
Oh, yeah. Every company has one.
Right. The person who can, walk onto a super noisy factory floor, close their eyes, just listen to the ambient hum of the machinery for maybe 10 seconds. And without even looking at a screen, tell you precisely which process is about to fail.
Exactly. I mean, they don't even need to look at a diagnostic dashboard, right? They just know it by, like, the specific pitch of the motor or maybe a really subtle vibration in the floorboards under their boots.
Yeah, that is exactly the person I'm talking about. So now I want you to imagine that same completely irreplaceable veteran is retiring tomorrow.
Oof. Yeah. That's a scary thought for management.
Truly. They are packing up their desk, they're throwing their personalized coffee mug into a cardboard box, and they are walking out the door forever. And the big question is, well, how do you download their brain before they leave? Like, how on earth do you capture 30 years of unspoken context, near misses, and those late-night emergency repairs without losing all those vital nuances?
Well, it is honestly the ultimate knowledge management nightmare. I mean, researchers call that kind of wisdom tacit knowledge.
Just tacit knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's the expertise that lives entirely inside someone's head. And it is notoriously difficult to translate that into, like, a standard operating procedure manual.
Because you can't just write down, listen for the weird hum,
Exactly. And every industry faces this brain drain. But in high-consequence industries, so energy, aviation, heavy manufacturing, losing that knowledge isn't just, a minor inconvenience for HR. It is a massive structural operational vulnerability.
Which brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a brand new, frankly, mind-bending solution to this exact problem. It was literally just announced today, July 29, 2026, by EON AI Ventures.
Okay, that fresh off the press.
Yeah, they're launching this add-on called Situation Room Voices.
Right. And to understand this, you have to know that this new tool essentially serves as a technological bridge between two platforms that EON actually already operates.
Okay, lay those out for us.
So first, you have the EON Situation Room, which is their verified incident course library. You can think of that as the official, unchangeable record of everything that has ever gone wrong at a company and exactly how it was fixed.
Like the permanent historical record.
Precisely. And then you have EON Tacit, which functions as their living memory platform. So that's a dynamic database designed to capture the ongoing daily expertise of the actual workforce.
But, just dropping a bunch of dry incident reports into a large language model doesn't magically recreate our retiring veteran.
No, not at all.
Right. So the core question we are going to really unpack today is how EON is attempting to create an AI that can actually speak with the hard-earned wisdom of a 30-year expert, but, and this is the key, without letting that AI invent fake news or hallucinate past events.
Because hallucination is just the massive elephant in the room here.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, in a corporate marketing department, an AI hallucinating a weird sentence is, it's embarrassing. But in an industrial refinery, an AI making up a plausible-sounding but factually incorrect safety procedure can literally level a city block.
Which is terrifying. So we're going to tear down EON's fascinating architectural solution today. It's a system that literally forces a split between hard fact and engaging storytelling.
It's super clever. Yeah.
But to really understand how they are solving this whole knowledge transfer problem, we first have to look at, who the user is actually interacting with in this new system, because you aren't just booting up some generic faceless AI chatbot.
No, not even close. Actually, EON refers to their underlying design philosophy here as talking to the seat that lived the pattern.
Talking to the seat. I love that phrasing. Let's break down what that actually means in a practical sense. Like, if I'm a new employee, who am I actually talking to?
So typically, when an enterprise rolls out an AI assistant, it's positioned as this omniscient, all-knowing entity. You ask it about an industrial accident, and it gives you a very dry, sort of top-down summary of the whole event.
Right, very Wikipedia style.
Exactly. But Situation Room Voices rejects that model entirely. Instead, the system utilizes 12 specific role archetypes.
Okay.
These are highly defined job seats that cut across 8 different oil and gas incident categories, which EON refers to as shelves.
Let me just pause you right there, because the concept of these shelves is really crucial to understanding the whole system, I think. What exactly constitutes a shelf in this specific context?
Yeah, so think of a shelf as a distinct category of an operational event or, a disaster. The source material outlines 8 specific shelves.
Okay, what are
You have flagship incidents, which are your major, like, headline-making events.
they? Right.
Then you have safety and isolation, startup and shutdown, overpressure.
Oh, wow, very specific.
Yeah, extremely. Then there's rotating, which refers to heavy rotating equipment, like big turbines. And finally, process upsets, loss of containment, and utilities.
Okay, so these AI roles you can interact with are mapped against these distinct shelves as either a primary seat or a secondary witness, meaning the AI's perspective actually shifts depending on what its job is supposed to be in that scenario.
Precisely. Let's say you want to understand a really complex incident involving startup and shutdown procedures or rotating equipment.
Right.
You wouldn't just query a general chatbot. You would intentionally select and interview the maintenance and mechanical lead voice.
Because they're the one dealing with that hardware.
Exactly. For those 2 specific shelves, that particular seat is considered the primary actor. They were literally the one with their hands on the machinery.
But, so if we were looking at a process upset incident like maybe a chemical mixture went wrong, that exact same maintenance lead might only be categorized as a secondary witness.
Right. Because they were on the floor, they saw it happen, but it wasn't their primary domain to actually manage the chemical mixture itself.
And that completely alters the data you get back from the AI. I mean, the roles EON has built are incredibly granular. You have a permit-to-work coordinator or, an isolation coordinator. You have a health, safety, and environment and HSE process safety advisor.
Yeah, there is even a relief and flare systems owner.
That is wild. So the underlying argument EON is making here is that a veteran's true value to a company isn't just knowing the sterile facts of a single incident.
No, it's their vantage point.
Yeah, it's like instead of asking a generic, all-knowing encyclopedia about a factory fire, you are interrogating the virtual hard hat of the exact permit-to-work coordinator who deals with those precise pressure valves every single day.
I love that analogy. You're getting the perspective of the seat, not just the raw data.
Right. It's like watching a massive car crash on the highway. If you interview the paramedic, you get a highly detailed account of trauma and triage. But if you interview the mechanic who towed the car, you get a detailed account of, like, a brake line failure.
Right. It is the exact same event, but the lessons extracted are totally different. EON is building a cast of AI voices around this core concept of the unique perspective.
Which makes so much sense.
Yeah, you can ask the shift supervisor how they view an overpressure event, and then compare that directly to how an instrument and analyzer technician views that exact same event.
And that ability to cross-reference perspectives is how you uncover those hidden systemic failures.
Yeah.
It's all about pattern recognition, right?
Absolutely. It is the ability of a specific role to see a recurring pattern from one very specific vantage point across dozens or maybe hundreds of incidents over an entire career.
Okay, this all sounds really incredible on paper, but I have to bring up a massive glaring red flag here.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Right. If we are talking to these virtual synthetic hard hats, and they are programmed to speak from a specific first-person persona's perspective,
Yeah?
well, the immediate danger is that the AI is going to do what large language models historically love to do.
Yep.
It's going to play character. It's going to make things up to sound more convincing or, more human.
Which brings us directly to EON's most radical design choice. It is a framework they actually call the 2 channels architecture.
2 channels, okay.
Yeah, this is the mechanical solution they've engineered to basically divorce evidence from emotion.
Well, the founder of EON AI Ventures, Dan Lajerskar, has a quote about this that I think perfectly sets the stakes. He stated, "Everyone is racing to generate synthetic experts that sound convincing. We refuse to let storytelling contaminate the verified record."
The word contaminant is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that quote, and it's entirely accurate.
Right. So mechanically, like under the hood, how do they actually prevent this contamination? How do you stop a conversational AI from seamlessly blending facts with fiction?
By forcing a hard separation right at the architectural level. Every single answer generated by one of these AI voices is forced into one of 2 explicitly labeled channels.
Like visibly labeled.
Yes. As the user looking at the screen, you don't just get a giant block of text. You see a visual badge telling you exactly what kind of information you are receiving in that very sentence.
Okay, let's pull apart these 2 channels. What is the first one?
So the first channel is badged as voice-cited. These are hard, course-backed facts spoken in the voice of the role, but every single claim is cryptographically tied to a specific Situation Room course and a specific span of raw data.
Wow, okay.
It is 100% verifiable evidence. And crucially, only these cited patterns can ever be proposed to become trusted organizational knowledge.
But even then, I mean, the AI doesn't have the authority to just declare something as official company policy on its own, does it?
No, definitely not. The AI can propose that a cited pattern should be added to the official manual, but it only becomes trusted knowledge after a separate, authorized human expert manually verifies it.
Okay, so the AI proposes and the human disposes.
Exactly.
So the first channel is the ironclad verified data. What is the second channel doing?
Right, so the second channel is visually badged as voice story. This is where the AI provides that memorable first-person framing that helps the cited pattern actually stick in the user's mind.
Okay.
It's the teaching color. It's the narrative wrapper around the raw data.
See, okay, I have to step in and really challenge this design.
Fair enough.
If the story layer is, by their own admission, fictional first-person framing generated by an AI, isn't that literally just a sanctioned hallucination?
I mean, you could look at it that way.
Like, why even include it at all?
Yeah.
If we are dealing with high-consequence safety protocols where a mistake literally costs lives, why wouldn't EON just give the user the dry, verified cited patterns and completely eliminate the risk of the AI getting carried away with the story?
On a purely risk-averse level, your logic makes perfect sense. I get it. But it completely ignores the reality of human cognitive psychology.
How so?
Well, if I hand you a sterile 40-page spreadsheet detailing compliance failures regarding pressure valves from the last decade, you might read it, you might even highlight it, but you won't truly absorb it.
Right.
When warning alarms start blaring at 3 a.m. and a pipe is physically shuddering in front of you, your brain is not going to instantly recall cell D47 from a spreadsheet.
Because the human brain just isn't wired to retain raw data points in a vacuum like that.
Exactly. We are wired for narrative. We survive through storytelling. The story layer provides the psychological hook that the data fundamentally lacks.
Give me an example of how that looks in practice.
Let's look at a hypothetical. The cited channel gives you the raw data. Valve 4 failed at 300 psi due to thermal shock.
Dry, forgettable.
Exactly. But the story channel pairs that with a narrative. It says, I was working the night shift, my boots were literally freezing to the grating, and when the temperature dropped, I couldn't get enough torque on the wheel before the pressure dial spiked into the red.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's completely different.
Right. That narrative gives the facts emotional weight and context. You are going to remember the freezing boots and the stuck wheel long after you forget the PSI number.
I do see the value in that for sure, but it still feels incredibly dangerous to let an AI invent a story about a real-world catastrophe.
And EON recognized that danger completely. They know that while story is an incredible tool for teaching, it is absolute poison for the historical record.
So how do they balance it?
Well, they built a strict, unbreakable architecture rule into the very foundation of the system.
What is the rule?
It goes, the agent or the voice is the face. Provenance is the brain. Story never graduates.
Story never graduates, meaning it is permanently quarantined from the official work intelligence record.
Forever. Even if you have, say, 3 different AI voices that all somehow hallucinate or agree on a specific story element, it is constrained by design. It stays in its lane.
They can't cross over.
No. The storytelling is utilized strictly as a vehicle to deliver the cited pattern to the learner, but the story itself is never, ever recorded as a factual event.
And to maintain that absolute firewall, the personas the AI adopts are entirely fictional composites, right?
Yeah,
Like they don't use real worker names.
No real names, no real employee IDs.
And the AI never pretends to actually be employed by the real user's company.
Yeah.
I also read that if a famous, heavily documented real-world incident is mentioned, it only ever appears in the cited pattern channel.
That's right.
The AI is strictly forbidden from generating an invented, I was there that night and here's what I saw, testimony about a real, actual tragedy.
Yes. That ethical and architectural distinction is so critical here. The AI is a simulator. It is not a historian.
So if the AI is successfully separating the verified facts from the engaging storytelling, it brings me to my next major question.
Which is?
What happens to the actual human experts? What happens to the guy who is packing up his desk tomorrow?
Yeah.
If an enterprise has this incredibly sophisticated 12-role AI system that has digested the entire historical corpus of the company.
Yeah.
Does this technology just replace the retiring veteran?
Yeah, that is always the immediate fear with this kind of technology, right? But EON is actually very explicit about their product promise here. Their stated philosophy is voices find the questions. Anchors own the answer.
Anchors. Okay, let's define that term. This is the human ground truth part of the equation, right?
Yes. Inside the EON Asset platform, there are actually two separate libraries sitting side by side. You have the Situation Room voices, which are the synthetic composite personas we just spent all this time breaking down.
Right, the 12 roles.
Exactly. But adjacent to them, you have the anchor interviews.
And these are real human beings.
Real people, recorded with their explicit consent and visually labeled with an anchor badge. This library is the verified human organizational memory. The synthetic voices are not designed to replace the anchor at all. They are designed to maximize the final download from the anchor.
Let's walk through that specific workflow, because this is where the system gets incredibly dynamic.
Yeah.
How does a user actually sit down and use the synthetic voices to interact with the real human anchors? Like, paint a picture for me.
Okay, let's imagine it's Tuesday and your veteran expert is retiring on Friday. You don't actually start by talking to the human.
Oh, really?
No. You start by conducting a structured role interview with the AI. You sit down at your terminal and you interview the synthetic maintenance lead. You spar with it. You throw complex scenarios at it, and the system produces a tagged transcript, keeping the cited facts and the story elements perfectly separated, just like we talked about.
So it's essentially using a highly intelligent practice dummy. Like, I am poking and prodding the historical record to see what the company already knows.
Exactly. You spar with the AI to map it all out, and you don't just do this once. Multiple role interviews across different AI personas are then fed into what EON calls a pattern blend.
A pattern blend. I assume that means the software is finding the common denominators across all these synthetic interviews.
Yeah, it creates a seat-indexed atlas of recurring course-backed patterns. It synthesizes all these different AI interviews to visually show you the recurring pain points, the common points of failure, and most importantly, the gaps in the official knowledge base.
The blind spot.
The blind spots, exactly. So now it's Thursday. You finally sit down with your real retiring veteran, the anchor. And because you spent Tuesday sparring with the AI and generating that pattern blend, you aren't going to waste the veteran's limited, incredibly valuable time asking them basic questions that are already documented in an SOP manual.
You don't need to ask them how to turn on the turbine. You already have that data.
Right. You use the AI's pattern blend to figure out exactly what the most high-yield, complex, edge case questions are. You ask the veteran about the anomalies the AI couldn't resolve.
It vastly accelerates the knowledge capture process.
Completely. The AI does the heavy lifting of synthesizing the vast corpus of past incidents, so the human interviewer can focus purely on extracting the nuanced ground truth answers that only a human who has lived it can provide.
Voices find the questions. Anchors own the answers. When you walk through the timeline like that, it makes total sense. So we've seen how this architecture functions in theory. It captures institutional knowledge safely. It utilizes narrative storytelling for psychological retention without corrupting the factual data. And it leverages AI to get substantially better answers out of human experts.
It is a remarkably elegant framework for a very messy human problem, I think.
But I want to know where this is actually happening. Like, is this just a conceptual white paper, or is this software live in the real world right now?
Oh, it is launching today, but EON is executing a very controlled rollout. It is being advanced as a fixed scope pilot add-on.
Meaning they aren't just releasing a loose API into the wild for any random company to plug into their Slack channels?
Definitely not. It is currently restricted specifically to industrial and high-consequence organizations that are already deeply integrated into the EON Situation Room or EON Tacit platforms.
And the initial pilot is entirely focused on the oil and gas sector, right?
Right. Yes, and even within that specific sector, the scope is highly, highly focused. They're only rolling out 4 of those deep role voices initially, and they're only covering 2 of the 8 shelves we discussed earlier, the flagship shelf and the safety and isolation shelf.
So they're starting extremely small, they're gathering real-world interaction data, and keeping the entire feedback loop under strict human review before they even attempt to scale it out.
Yeah. Every single role interview and pattern blend generated during this pilot phase will undergo intense human scrutiny. EON has to prove the 2 channels architecture actually holds up in the wild before they consider a wider rollout across the remaining shells, let alone expanding into entirely different industry verticals.
Which is honestly the only responsible way to handle this. When you are dealing with safety and isolation protocols for massive energy infrastructure, you cannot afford the Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things.
Oh, absolutely not. That would be disastrous.
Right. You have to move deliberately and verify every single output. And I think it's worth contextualizing exactly who is behind this. EON AI Ventures isn't some flashy, brand new startup that just discovered generative AI last week and decided to pivot.
Far from it. They have a 25-year foundation in building immersive learning technology. Their systems are actually currently deployed in over 80 countries worldwide.
Wow. And they are the company behind a broader ecosystem they call work intelligence, right?
Yes, it's a suite of platforms, things like Genesis, Field IQ, and Assess IQ, that are all aimed at capturing how expert work is actually executed. They encode those raw procedures into AI-guided simulations and then deliver those simulations to workers in the field to physically verify their competency.
So this new add-on just feeds right into that.
Exactly. They refer to this entire ecosystem as their intelligence flywheel. The goal is continuous improvement. You capture ground truth knowledge, you verify it rigorously, and then compound it over time to make the workforce safer and more efficient.
And I think that broader context is why this deep dive matters so much, regardless of what industry you, the listener, actually work in. Like, you might be listening to this and thinking, well, I have absolutely nothing to do with oil and gas. I don't know the first thing about a flare system or a rotating turbine.
But the underlying architectural philosophy they've developed here is universally applicable.
It really is. Every single enterprise on the planet right now, hospitals, international banks, airlines, logistics companies, they're all struggling with how to adopt generative AI safely.
Because every CEO is terrified that an AI is going to confidently invent a fake HR policy or, hallucinate a legal precedent that results in a massive lawsuit.
Exactly. So EON's idea of visually badging the story layer versus the citation layer of hard coding, a foundational architecture rule that mandates story never graduates, that is a blueprint.
It really is. It is a roadmap for how any organization can harness the incredible communicative power of AI storytelling without letting it poison their factual databases.
It allows an enterprise to basically have the best of both worlds. You get the engaging conversational interface that makes AI so uniquely powerful for learning, but it is fundamentally constrained by a rigorous, evidence-backed provenance system.
Right. By physically separating the cited patterns from the story layer, EON is letting the AI do what it does best, synthesizing massive amounts of historical data into a cohesive, readable pattern while strictly quarantining the narrative wrapper away from the verified, human-approved record.
And by placing the synthetic AI voices right alongside the human anchors inside the platform, they ensure that the final ground truth authority always remains human.
The human is always the ultimate arbiter of what becomes official knowledge.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought to just sort of mull over. Let's go back to that 30-year veteran retiring tomorrow.
Okay.
A single human being, no matter how brilliant or observant, can only experience so many incidents, so many emergencies in one lifetime. But think about these AI pattern blends growing over the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Oh, yeah. They will be absorbing and synthesizing the verified ground truth wisdom of literally thousands of retiring experts across an entire global industry.
Exactly. We will eventually reach a point, maybe not next year, but soon, where the synthetic voice of the seat, that virtual permit coordinator or maintenance lead, has effectively lived through vastly more incidents across more facilities and varying extreme conditions than any single human being could possibly experience in 10 lifetimes.
Which is a crazy thing to think about.
Right. And when the AI's composite, human-verified experience far surpasses the biological limits of the human lifespan, how will that fundamentally change our definition of what an expert actually is?
It raises a profound question about the future of all knowledge work, really. When the AI has seen literally everything that has ever happened in the past, the human's value is no longer in their historical recall. The human's value shifts entirely to navigating the unprecedented.
We will leave you with that to chew on. Until next time, keep digging deeper.